Welcome to Live Sense8. I'm Sheila Applegate.
And I'm Zac Hansen.
And a special shout out to Justin Applegate for the composition of the Live Sense8 podcast music. In this podcast, we dive deep into the concepts of consciousness and other interesting trivia in the Netflix Original Series Sense8. We're doing an episode-by-episode exploration of how we can live a Sense8 life. And we're also talking with cast and crew and team members of Sense8 to hear the experience from their perspective.
Enjoy the show. And I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to our latest patrons on patreon.com. Big shout out goes to Maximilian Ewalt, Tracy Wright, and Marisa Dranchak. Thank you very much for your support. What's going on?
In this segment, we talk about what's going on in the world of the Sense8 fandom. Thank you to everyone who contributed to Lana's video. That was her birthday video, and those who hashtagged for her birthday. She got a lot of wonderful attention, and I hope you have seen that she personally replied to the video with a thank you. So lots of love to everyone on that beautiful solstice birthday of our goddess creator, Lana. We are coming to the final submissions for Martin Earhart's documentary, Sense8 Is My Life. Make sure, if you have not yet, this is your last chance, get out that camera, take a little video of yourself saying whatever you want to, that you want to be included in that documentary, how it impacted you, what's important to you about it, and tell a story about something that has inspired you through the Sense8 experience, and send that video to Martin at sense8withoutborders@gmail.com. That's sense, and then the number 8, withoutborders@gmail.com. The Kickstarter crowdfunding for the San Francisco Sense8 mural, which is spearheaded by Maximilian Ewalt, who played Grace in Sense8, is underway and building up some steam. There are still thousands of dollars that need to be gathered in order to pull this project off. And the mural is set to go up in San Francisco, and they're looking at this being a prototype so that we can have some crowdfunded murals of Sense8 that are marking Sense8 around the world and sharing the magic with people. So that is another one of those projects that the crowdfunding has to meet its goal or they get nothing. So pledge and share whenever you can. We also have a very interesting, the Sensorium app is now available. This is an app that has been created to help connect Sense8 from around the world. You can connect based on your birthday, or you can connect based on your interest, your location. There's various ways to find your cluster, create your cluster, and then you can communicate with other clusters. So it is a social media platform that's designed for people who want to uphold and live the Sense8 concepts of inclusiveness, love, diversity, support, expansion, all of those wonderful magical Sense8 things that we have. You can find out more about this app at sensorium.online, or send an email to info@sensorium.online. The I Am Also a WeCon has launched its crowdfunding project, and we are really lucky to have with us today Christina and Leah to help tell you all about it. Hello, Christina and Leah.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi
guys.
there. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for joining
You're
us.
welcome.
Thank you.
So we're really excited about this con. Can you tell us just a little bit about it and what makes it unique?
So what we wanted to do is to create an event that's not only Sense8, but basically focuses on everything that Sense8 has inspired around the globe. So we wanted to shed a light on representation, and in specific this time, because who knows, maybe we can do it again. We are concentrating on LGBTQ representation and on diversity. So we wanted to bring together different artists, not just Sense8 focused, to see what work is already done out there and how amazing diversity and equality is for everyone involved. And also to bring together people from all over the world like Sense8 does, and just, to try to live these very relevant and important Sense8 values and messages that Lana and her team has brought us.
That's awesome. And also exactly why we love this idea so much, because it's about living the
Amen.
Sense8 life.
Exactly.
That's great. So you started a crowdfunding and you need people's support.
Yes, we do. Obviously, as the con is called the I Am Also We Con, we are trying to make this happen together as a community, and everyone is welcome and encouraged to support and to attend, to join the idea and us in bringing this to life. Basically, we were inspired by Sense8 and the values it portrays, and wanted to just get people together. But in order to do that, we can't just do that by ourselves. We need the support of people who are we trying to get together, if that makes sense. So
Yes, because, this isn't your career. This is coming from your heart, right?
No.
God, no, yeah.
No.
Did you go to the Paris Con? And if so, was there anything that inspired you to roll over to this campaign?
I was lucky enough to have been able to go to the Paris Con thanks to Liat, Sense8ing on Twitter. So little shout out to that amazing woman. And I just loved how it brought people together. I love that there is such a thing as a Sense8 Con, that people organize these kinds of very unique events for this one show that a certain company thinks is not as relevant as it is. But yeah, I think we were inspired by the fact that these events exist in Europe, and we were joking about how Berlin would be a nice place to hold one of those events too. And then it just became a plan.
That's great. And unlike the other cons so far, this is a nonprofit con, right? And this is why you're reaching out to people to support this.
Yes, while Leah was able to go to the con, I unfortunately wasn't. And that was partly due to the fact that it was quite expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So as a student, obviously, you don't really go about spending a lot of money anyway. So we kind of tried to keep the cost for everyone involved as low as possible. And we're more about, because we're not doing this professionally at all, we just really like the idea of having a place to go and connect with people. And since we haven't really found anything like that, we just figured we'd give it a go and organize it ourselves. So that's what we're doing, pretty much.
Badass.
Yeah.
Right.
I think while the Paris Con was a very good place to come together, and I really enjoyed the panels and everything that everyone involved had to say, and it was very positive. To be honest, it feels more true to the Sense8 values to just try to put this together as humans and not be there and buy autographs and such, just to come together and connect on a human level, I'd say.
That's really beautiful. So can you tell everyone how they can donate to the I Am Also a WeCon?
That's actually pretty easy. We have launched an Indiegogo campaign, which probably lots of people already know the platform. It's a fundraising platform. The links to it can be found on basically all of our social media, the Twitter account, the Facebook and Instagram. You basically follow the link And then it has more information about the con and what is going to be happening, about people who will be there. And on the right side, there are perks which you can choose from. So you can buy a 2-day pass, for example, or you can just buy merch articles, basically. And all the money which you sort of donate or which you use to buy one of the perks for is going to be used to get this event going. So it's really quite easy. You just follow the link and pick a perk.
And your goal for this is?
25,000 euros.
And it needs to be, you need to reach this goal in order to put the con on, right? So we all need to team together and support this and make this happen.
Is there a deadline for this?
Exactly. We need to reach this goal together by, I think, 60 days from now, which, Leah, correct me, but is at the beginning of August.
Yeah, it should be the 6th of August. Unfortunately not. Oh, the 8th of August would have been amazing.
The 8th of August would have been amazing. We should have thought of that. Oh, well. But, like, shortly before.
We will celebrate on the 8th of August. We will achieve the goal, and we will have a celebration here on Live Sense8 for the 8th of August.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. That sounds like a brilliant plan.
Okay, so everybody needs to share this on social media. You need to donate whatever you can. If you can arrange to get to Berlin, we're going to be back with Leah and Christina at various times throughout these next 60 days to help tell you more details. But start spreading, start donating, and let's make this happen. Thank you, Leah and Christina.
Thank you guys for helping us get the word out. And we're looking forward to welcoming everyone in November.
Awesome. All right. We are very honored to have with us today Purab Kohli, who you know as Rajan in Sense8. Purab started his career as an actor with the television Hip Hip Hooray on ZTV. He earned recognition through video jockeying on Channel V. And he was with Channel V for quite some time, which is equivalent to MTV, if you want to get a little context for that. And he also hosted many travel shows that took him all through India, showing the landscape and being able to travel and be on television. He has a large list of film credits, and some of those include Rock On 2, Noor, Airlift, and Gel. And the one that is probably most pivotal for Purab is My Brother Nikhi. Welcome, Purab. We're so glad that you're here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you very much. Thank you, Zac.
So glad you could be here. Oh, man. We've been waiting for this for so long.
I'm so sorry. I've been actually very busy shooting, though you contacted me a little while ago.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Great.
We're just so
I'm so
excited.
sorry. It took a while for me to respond.
It's okay. No worries. Really.
You got things
We
to do.
understand. You're a busy man.
Let's blame it on time difference.
Yes,
Right,
that works. So we love you in Sense8. You're amazing, and you play such an important role to the whole series. And you may be one of the most talked about characters right now. So it's perfect timing to have you on. We always like to ask a little bit about your experience in this whole, like, just, your first take experience about working with the Wachowskis. I think this is one of the newer times working with
Western film
directors.
Western film. Yeah. So what stands out the most for you with this experience?
Well, I think it's definitely been a privilege to work on Sense8. Let me start off by saying that. And it's not an experience just to be, talked about as an experience working with a Hollywood or a Western setup, a crew that works primarily in America. But I think it's also an experience of working with the Wachowskis. I think for me, the very few films that travel into the heart of India, and make a difference. So I know Hollywood is so big in the rest of the world, but and now in today's time, you get a lot of Hollywood films that are even dubbed into Indian languages and play in different parts of India. And I grew up in a part of the country in a city called Mumbai, and in a part of Mumbai called Bandra, which is predominantly been open to Western cultures and spoken, as you can see, I speak English. So I mean, we have been exposed, but there are few films that actually penetrate even beyond that and go into sometimes the heartland of India, and The Matrix is one of them.
Sweet.
So it's a film that, so The Matrix is a film that has impacted us as Indians also. And I remember getting a call from my agent saying that there's a show that's and at that point of time, even Netflix wasn't in India. I had heard of Netflix because of friends living in America and talking about it, and everyone talking about video streaming, and you can see it online. You don't need to rent anymore. In fact, I'd heard about Netflix even when they were sending out video cassettes to everybody, because that was probably the first time I came into America in 97, 98, 99, or early 2000s. There were a few trips that I made in the early 2000s to the States to see some friends of mine, and everybody was talking about this cool company called Netflix sending out videotapes to everybody.
It was definitely cool and still is.
Yeah, still is. Yeah. So I'd heard of Netflix, but I mean, it still wasn't officially here in India. And I got a call from my agent saying, that there's a show that's going to be on Netflix, and have you heard of the directors, the Wachowskis? I said, of course. They're doing it, so they need you to test for it, and that's how it started. The journey started, and I remember doing a test, and the casting director, he'll be very upset that I'm saying this on international podcasts, but he did lose the tapes.
Oh no.
So he came back 2 days later and said, what, I'm really sorry, but somehow the tapes are misplaced and we don't know where your recording is gone. Can you do it again? And we did it again, but it proved to be lucky. And then the next thing I knew, I got a call from my agents again saying that, that the Wachowskis are in town and they want to meet you. And at that point of time, you mentioned a film I did called Jal, which is another very important film in my career, which released in 2014, and that was about the time that Sense8 was being cast and being put together. And I remember it must have been March or April of 2014 that I was promoting that film, and I was literally flying around India from city to city doing interviews and meeting the press. And I got a call in between that time saying that the Wachowskis are here. So I remember I flew into Bombay just for like a few hours. I came in the morning, met with them, and which was a dream come true. And I remember telling my agent after that saying, I don't really care if I get it. I mean, I'd really love to get it, but if I don't get it, it doesn't matter. I've already met them, and that's big. That is huge for me already.
Check that off your bucket list.
Yeah. So it was definitely an experience. I mean, just a privilege up till then. But then, of course, working with them, seeing how they work, a whole Western ethic, on a set is very different from an Indian sort of ethic, that the way we work. There are lots of things that come into play, which is very different. I won't say any is better or worse, but it's just very different. And it did take me a little while also to adjust to it, and start understanding how the system works. I mean, for starters, one of the things that's still very common in India is the way we don't record live sound. I mean, that's a given when you're doing a Western show. So small details like that, the order on sets. And in India, it's also very sort of fluid and very evolving when you're working on a set. Many a times, even very profound and great filmmakers will want you to sort of improvise and come up with things and do things while you're in front of the camera and change it. Whereas I think here a lot of things get set. Again, I say that as not as saying it as a difference between the West and working in India, but more I think each filmmaker works differently.
Yeah,
and on Sense8 we had an opportunity of working with a few. So they're of course the Wachowskis, who sort of pioneer the show and hold the flag up high. But we had even James McTee, who's someone who works a lot with them. And in fact, the first season, he did a lot of stuff with us in Mumbai, who directed, who had had the privilege of being directed by James, and then a little bit by Tom Tikwa, who, I didn't have much with him, but most of all, I had Lana, which is such a joy to work with her. It's just unbelievable. She's a genius.
We've heard.
Yeah, she's just a genius. And by the time because the first season, as I said, I was working a lot with James. I did just 2 days with Andy and Lana, of course Lily now. At that time he was Andy. So just a day or two with them. The whole wedding sequence was done by them. Into the second season, it was only Lana, and I was just sort of coming into the Sense8 family, because now suddenly Rajan was traveling with them and, sort of moving. A lot of the whatever happens outside the show and the way the characters sort of travel into the show also impacts. In somewhere Sense8 feels like it's not really what you see in front of the camera. It's also what's going on behind that sort of comes into the show. It's in a strange sort of way. I can't explain it, but
there is a lot of chemistry going on in the show.
I think Lana sort of
detail.
Lana sort of churns it up. She puts it, the way she sort of orchestrates it. It's beautiful, because you can see the connections outside of the show into the show. Sometimes when you're acting on a film, or you may hate the person you're acting with, and when you arrive on the set and you're doing a scene with them and you're like, okay, it's just acting, let's get it done. But with Sense8, it's very different, because it's sort of, you can see the energies flow. It's bigger than what is being shot, and bigger than what is being seen, and bigger than, it's a movement, and you can see it and translate into people who watch it, and people who sort of have become a cult around it, have made it into this cult thing. And I think the churner of it all and the stirrer of it all is Lana.
That's the general consensus. Excellent.
Yeah.
And everyone that we've interviewed so far says that.
I call her the magician. She stirs everybody up.
Yeah.
It is. And I agree, the way this is woven together, it creates it's a catalyst in a way for the audience member, because everything, you have the audio, the sound, the music, the lines, the actors, and all the emotion, the cinematography, it all comes together to create an unspoken experience within the audience member, and that's why people are so moved. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and why there's a lot of genius behind this.
A lot of genius.
Yes.
Like I was saying that, she really pushed limits on me, also, because I remember there was a scene that we were doing in the special, the last episode that you guys would have seen. I keep saying special because I said finale once and the fans bashed me on Twitter.
You gotta be careful.
So I keep saying special now. It is a special, and that's what we're going to hope that it keeps coming back.
It is very special.
But there's a scene where Rajan comes in and finds out what's going on with Kala, and he's all confused, and he sits down on the bed with her, and where he tells her that he's still going to be supportive of her, and he says, I can't leave you now, you're in trouble, and you're in danger. It's you may remember that scene.
Yes.
When we were shooting that scene, as an actor, you read the dialogues and you learn the lines and you imagine what you would do with it, and you come down and you sit down and you start doing the scene, and invariably it's a tweak here and there by the director that you sort of fixes it and you say, okay, hey, we got the scene, it's a wrap. But particularly in this scene, and then it's happened a few times over in Sense8, where Lana just throws you off. She just like makes you do something that you haven't thought of at all. And with this, I mentioned this scene because this scene is when I really let go, because initially when she did it a couple of times when we were shooting season 2 in Positano and in Mumbai. And I would feel like it was sort of, because as an actor, you think of the whole line of the character, where he's traveling from and where's he coming from, the scene before, the scene after, and then things she would throw in would sort of break all of that. You'd be like, okay, how do I connect it? And this time I just let go and I said, forget the connection. Let's just do what she wants. And it felt so good, it felt so good. And after that, after I did this scene, I came out of it and I said, Lana, this has to be one of the most I don't know if it's the best performance I've done, but it's been most fulfilling forever to do a scene. And it's been today, because you just like sort of pushed me. You pushed me off the edge and I took the leap. That's what it felt like.
I did notice, and I agree with Rajan's character in particular. For me, I think there was a big, because there was not a season 3, right? We had to wrap this all up, but there was a huge transition that's kind of unspoken between season 2 and the season 2 special. And to me, it really shows up. And there's a lot of, because Lana likes to make those characters that really aren't black and white. So you don't really, like Jonas is a really great example of that. But your character as well with the pharmacy and the corruption, and you don't, like for us, we talk about Rajan on the podcast and stuff, and I just don't know his true intent. Like you want to think that he does love Kala, but you're not sure. But the transition that was made in this episode for me, we talk about the transformations that are made, and I think really Rajan is a very pivotal character actually for the whole story arc as far as the romance goes. And you did it wonderfully, and I love, like, you made me laugh, right? Like that was a great thing too. It was such it was awesome lines, and you nailed it because everybody's just smiling and laughing. Like, you couldn't have possibly made this up, right? Like I don't have confidence in you enough that you could have done this. Like this is just so it was hilarious. It was hilarious. But I really think there's a huge transition for him because we see him open up and he actually becomes a lot more loving. And Sheila and I haven't actually talked about this on the show, but for me, Rajan's character and the way you just talked about how things happen that aren't spoken, right? And for me, one of the hot topics is Wolfgang and Rajan and Kala. And to me, after going back and watching the show and how you portray Rajan, and it's not a spoken or alluded to at all, not really, but in that scene that you're talking about just now, where she tells you, and as Rajan, you're open to this, and in that moment, I really think that you, as the character Rajan, opens up and starts understanding. He personally starts understanding his identity of self is actually greater, right? Because now he's very concerned about Kala, but it's not, for me, it's not until now where you start to understand, like, he's actually considering Wolfgang as part of Kala's happiness and well-being in life. So he's really opening up his self-identity. And you nailed it. I got it.
That scene was perfect. Like that. Yeah, you did nail that scene. Good job.
I think Rajan actually, season 2 did churn up a few things with him, and when you thought about, he's not all clean, and he's got something shady going on at the back. And I think what Rajan has always been, he's a very simple guy. He's just really simple, and he functions from just one space, which is, I think, a certain amount of loyalty to his family and his father and his business in one side, and the other side, in his love to Kala, he just loves her. There's nothing else bigger than that, and nothing else. And what happens then is that, so I think in this scene that we're talking about, he's more over there saying that, okay, she's in trouble and I love her and I have to be here. There's no other reason I need to be there. I don't think he's really opened up to the Wolfgang idea there. But I think, so I don't think he's so smart. I think Rajan is just like, okay, I'm here now and I'm going to support you, and whatever happens is I'm willing to take it, and then it starts coming and it starts offloading slowly. And I think there's little instances where you see it when they're driving in the car, after the whole release of Wolfgang, he ends up helping Wolfgang in the nightclub a little bit. It's just from his simplicity of wanting to help his wife, and it's a simple love that he has for her, and that's what made him beautiful for me, and I said, okay, he's just going with it, he's just like, he's like, okay, whatever Kala does, I will do, and then he ends up in this position where he's like, wow, this is actually a great experience, and I'm enjoying this ride, which is why I love that line after the orgy scene in the end. Right. I mean, for me, I was doing a post sort of, when we were shooting the show, Karen, Lana's wife, was interviewing all of us and asking us questions about what we feel of the show. And while chatting with her, I kind of realized that Rajan, for me, then became the ordinary person watching Sense8, sitting there saying that, okay, what's going on here? He's a simple mind come into a show that's so complex, dealing with so many ideas, gender, sci-fi, evolution, all these ideas being thrown at him. And by the end of it, he's like, wow, I can't believe that this was even possible. So
Yep.
I think Rajan represents that person for me, and which is why I love that line, because at the end, I think he speaks for everybody who's been moved by the show and taken by the show, who didn't feel these things before,
Right.
And suddenly now
Yeah,
he feels all these things, and the show actually ends with that line.
It does.
And it's like, wow, So for me as an actor, I'm sitting there and saying, wow, he has the closing line of the layman who's watching this show.
Yes.
I mean, that was a big kick for me. I was like, wow, I just love it.
Yeah. I love how they spread the love. Sheila, do you want to dig into this last line a little bit more and talk about a deeper meaning maybe that we see?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love, since we started doing the podcast, when we're not interviewing people, we dive really deep into the lines and the messages. And so it just, I'm realizing what a masterpiece it is. And, I've heard, and then we're over on Twitter and things. So I've heard different takes on it. And I think it is what you said exactly, a reflection of, all of us viewing it and not knowing, and opening up to something that they didn't know was possible. To me, like the orgy scene is like, because they're not physically with each other in orgies. And so like that, that moment he's opening, it's like what he didn't know, he's included. And then up and into that point, we see the other people, the partners in the orgies once in a while, but they don't acknowledge that they're present in it, right? So you're acknowledging, not only did you acknowledge that this whole experience has opened you up, but there's this like almost sensate awareness that it can bridge you into a space where you're conscious of the cluster and their energy. So to me, it took it even further, like when we open our mind, like he did, in just pure love. I love what you said. He's just pure love, just expanding.
Yeah.
If love means this now, then that's what I do. And now love just got bigger, so I'm going to act bigger and bigger until it's just this big explosion of, wow, this is what it can do. And so it's everything you said, and then just that experience of now he experienced Sense8. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your perspective on that too, because we kind of sit here and we think a certain way, and then you come up and you're like, hey, this is just the everyday audience member. And I think that's so awesome, because I never thought of that way. When Michael Summers, Bug, was on the show, he told us about a fan who helped him understand Bug a little bit more. And I never thought of it that way before either, where Bug says what the audience is thinking. And it's so true. And it's really cool to just go back and see from this new perspective that you've brought, and that Michael brought, just to see, like, oh yeah, I get this in a new way. And that's what Sheila's saying, like it's a masterpiece, because there's so many different layers, and it kind of can meet you where you're at and where you're thinking about it. So it's beautiful.
And I think what one also must know and must feel and must have the sense of is that sensates are evolved human beings.
Right.
They've gone through some sort of evolution, which means that each one of us can evolve, into feeling what they're feeling. And I think, I posed that question to Lana when we were getting into doing the last orgy, and I said, but I'm not a sensate, so how do I penetrate into that? And she said, you know what? Everyone just sort of moves with each other now, everyone through Kala and Wolfgang, and it's all one sort of larger feeling that is coming together. And I think that's what you see with the last orgy sequence, where the connection is being made across. And that last shot is probably the only time you see that when she sort of moves away from all the different bodies intertwined with each other after my line, and you really see all the characters together.
Right.
Otherwise, each one has their own little love sharing experience going on in each individual hotel suite,
Right.
So, and then suddenly it's like everyone's together right at the end, and it's actually the connection that has been made by all these different characters, and
including sensates and not sensates, which was awesome.
Yeah. And like she included Bug and Felix to let us remember, they weren't even in the act of sex with anyone.
Yeah.
So I do think that, she she's a genius. She's not, she's not gonna end that episode without a huge message, like of what she wants. And that is so perfect. What an honor, right? To have that line.
Absolutely.
Like, when you looked at it and saw it, were you just like, oh man, this is awesome?
Absolutely. And and we didn't know it because when she wrote the finale, when she wrote the special, when she wrote the special, we went into Berlin to read it, and we were all sent the episode before, minus the last 10 pages. So,
oh, wow.
So nobody knew what the last 10, 15 pages were.
Sneaky.
She sent us just up to, I think she just sent us up to the point where Wolfgang shoots down the helicopter.
Oh, wow.
I think just up to there. I can't remember clearly, but I think that's the point where she sent us the script till, and she said that and then the last 15 pages were given to us on an envelope. So we did the reading up till that point, and then the last 15 pages were given to all the actors when no one had read it before. And then we read it out over there. It was so lovely.
Oh, wow. I just got chills.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it was just so lovely. Lana does that. She just sort of...
Surprise.
Then she knows she has something great going. She just throws it in at the right point. And everyone's just like blown away by it. Like, wow. She sets it up for you, and she just gently pushes you over.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So people have said that some of the other actors we've interviewed said that they feel very much like their character resonates with them on some level, and a few people have said that they feel like Lana, as it went on, she wrote their their personality into the character a little more. Do you feel like that happened with you?
Well, I actually don't sort of feel I am Rajan at all. I'm far more complex. I'm far more complex person than Rajan. I don't think I could simply love somebody so easily. He's a really nice guy. I'm a lot more demanding to my wife and my family. But I think I didn't. I mean, as an actor, you sort of connect with the character and you understand where the character is coming from. But I don't think Rajan and me have lots in similar, besides my own self that plays him and then sort of in a strange way becomes similar, It's my understanding of him that becomes the similarity between me and him.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. But what happened was, interestingly, after season 1, I mentioned to Lana and James saying that Rajan's just such a nice guy, and I wish he was a little bad. I actually mentioned it to James. I didn't say it to Lana. I mentioned it to James, and I said, he's just such a nice guy. And, it's like, there's nothing happening with him, and he's just like really sweet. And then the next thing, in season 2, I knew all these things started creeping up in Rajan. And then when I went for the reading, and Lana looked at me and said, so you said you thought Rajan was a very nice guy. So she heard me clearly, loud and clear.
That's awesome.
So I think Lana does that. She sort of tries and she I think, as I said, she's sitting up there churning it all around with her magic wand, and to do that you need to be very sensitive to everybody around. So she was very sensitive to all the actors, their own characters, and more importantly on what they want and what they want to do with the characters. And she was open to that. To actually, I mean, people get so attached to their writing that more than often don't want to change anything about it. And here's Lana Wachowski, the Lana Wachowski, who's sitting there and listening to an actor who's spoken to another director on the show and has said, okay, he wants something bad, let's give him something bad, and she's thrown it in. So I definitely agree that she was sort of feeling everybody's energies and trying and working with that and trying to incorporate their own little selves also into the show. But having said that, also I don't feel. I mean, at least to start off with, Rajan is not. I think I'm far more complex than him.
Right.
He's simpler. That's a big difference to start off with.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
Yeah, Sandra, who plays Janet, didn't feel like it was her character either. So, and I'm sure we haven't talked to Whispers, but I bet he doesn't either.
Probably not. He's not a cannibal that was, who plays him.
Yeah, of course.
So we got some clips we want to talk about. The first one is we have Rajan and Kala outside of the hospital and taking a walk, and she's going to talk about what happened before Rajan's father got stabbed. So let me play this.
The doctors are saying it's a miracle he's still alive. I'm not sure which would upset my father more. The idea of fanatics trying to kill him, or a god getting credit for saving him.
How's your mother?
As he improves, she becomes convinced that it's because she's praying again. She wants to go to the temple with you.
Rajan, I know you want to get back to the hospital.
It's actually nice to get outside, so thank you. Though I'm a little nervous about what you've been wanting to talk about.
It's about something I didn't tell the police when they questioned me about the attack on your father. It had no bearing on what happened. It was a private matter. As such, I felt that I should tell only you. Your father did not want us to get married. He told me that he had reconsidered and asked me to say no to you, for your own good. He thought that we were not well matched.
What did you say?
There was no time to say very much of anything.
How difficult it must have been for you to hold all this inside.
I thought it was important for you to know.
A lesser woman would have said, he wished us well, that he wanted us to be married no matter what. And he gave us his blessings. And I would have known that she was lying.
You knew he was against our marriage?
Of course.
So is that what I was to you? An act of rebellion against your father?
Never.
I told you the truth.
Maybe it added a bit of spice to my attraction to you, but it has nothing to do with why I asked you to marry me. I want you to marry me not to be for or against anyone else, because I love you. I trust you. And I can imagine no better life than growing old with you. All I need to know now is, after everything that has happened, do you still want to marry me?
All right, Purab, so do you want to tell us about that scene and why you love it?
Well, I think that's the first time you see a sort of a tug. Like as I mentioned to you earlier, Rajan is very loyal and very simple, and he's also he's at one side he's committed to his father and his old father's company cause and all of that, and then one side he's got his girl he's extremely in love with, and he's just blindly in love with her. And I think that scene for me is the first time you see him go through some sort of turmoil where he realizes his father's actually come to break it all up, and you also see that there's some depth in him where he wants to stand up against his father, but at the same time he's torn down by traditions of his maybe in Indianness, where your joint family taking over your father's company. And I like that scene because it was some scope for performance in the actor in me, where you actually see, for me that's Rajan's scene. It's Rajan's scene where he's walking down and him and Kala having this conversation, and he's dealing with all that's being told to him, but at the same time there's an attack on his father, and there's this girl he loves, but what also happens is that he's still overlooking what she's actually feeling at that point of time. You know, so because he's so absorbed in himself and what he's feeling at that moment. I mean, for me, a good scene is when, as an actor, when you have stuff to do, and there's a lot going on and you're functioning from many different places. There's sometimes when you get clean, most of the time you get scenes which are sort of straightforward, and you know where you're coming from, you know where you're going. But in a scene like that, it's dealing with many things. There's so much going on at that point of time that you're trying to incorporate all of those, not in words sometimes, but just in thoughts in your mind, and it kind of influences and reactions of and how you, again, I mean, hats off to the brilliant writing of that scene.
Yeah.
And
well, it's kind of the first time we see him. Like, to me, he's kind of stepping up, and I know he's overlooking Kala's emotions, but he's also kind of coming into his with Kala. He's disassociating himself with his father and saying, I'm kind of my own man here, and I can make decisions. I know what's going on, and all that kind of stuff. So that was great about that scene.
Yeah. And you see, that's exactly, you see him also, and so this was associating himself with his father, and also I think partly with Kala, where he's, I mean, at the end of the scene, of course, he does come back into Kala mode, but there's a moment where you almost feel that there's going to be a sort of conflict there between them, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to come back, and be with you.
Yep, great. So, very beautiful. We have the next scene, one of many on a balcony.
And there's lots of different balconies.
There's so many balconies.
Let me just tell the listeners that in our communications, Purab gave us a description of this clip that he wanted. And the description was something like season 2 on the balcony before the breakup or something. So we were looking through and we realized how many different balconies that your scenes are on. Like, is it the balcony at her parents', or is it the balcony at their apartment?
Or at the pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, you were on a lot of balconies. I don't know what that means about your character, but there's something. But we found it.
He's actually a wannabe Romeo.
There you
Looking
go.
for the balcony to talk to Juliet.
That's probably, we're joking about it, but the genius that is Lana probably states that.
The romantic in Rajan.
Yeah.
Then if I wanted something, I focused everything on that goal. Usually refusing to hear or see anything but what I wanted. And I've never wanted anything like I wanted you. I've been so blind that I couldn't see the most obvious thing. That how I felt about you was not the same as how you felt about me. But if I'm anything, I'm optimistic. Which made me realize that it's not too late for either of us to come to a quick decision to...
Rajan, please, don't say anything more. Right now, let us not make any decisions. Whatever happens tomorrow, we will let the fates decide. But what happens right now? What happens for the rest of this night? Please, let me decide.
Well, I love that scene because a part of that scene, especially the bit about the Siren Islands, was actually written probably a day before. Lana may have been thinking about it, but she wrote it a day before and gave it to me, or probably on the day. I can't remember correctly right now, but because she had decided to shoot on that balcony, and there were some parts of the scene that were already there, and then suddenly she realized that the islands in front of us were the actual Siren Islands, from the mythology. So she was like, "Those are the islands, and I have to write a scene about the islands and incorporate it." And then she very beautifully sort of wove it into that scene, and we did it right there and then, and it was magical. And I think that again is a scene like the previous one we spoke about in season 2, where he's actually now again coming and finding some part of his own and saying, "Okay, this is not working out. Let's let it go, and I'm willing to give this up, and I'll live with the sadness of it, but I don't want to bog you down with being around me." And he's rewarded with her then taking him to bed after that scene. So I think that's why I like that scene, because again, it's Rajan coming to finding some of his own sort of feet without the crutches of being madly in love with Kala and just following suit.
And I am so glad that you picked this one, because after there you have a lot of great balcony scenes, but I didn't hear, because that's the thing. There's so many important lines in Sense8 that you can't hear them all. That's why. I mean, people have watched this 14 times and stuff, but I can't quite imagine it, and yet I kind of can in the sense that you can find a new line every time, and that is one. The one about the sirens, I never picked up on it until tonight, and that is a pivotal point for Rajan. Like, and it's so cool that she just was like, "Oh, we got to use this," and here it is, and yet it becomes who does think about the sirens? Because, like you said in that other scene, he's not, and that was my pet peeve about him. Like, he always said the right lines, and he said all this beautiful thing, but he never stopped to see what she wanted, or to listen to her. So that line, the fact that even me, I was like, oh, right, we never talk about the sirens. Like, what about their point of view? That mythology is all about the man, that they, and who stops to think about them. So it was just such a profound moment. And it, whether she realized it at that point or not, because you guys probably didn't know how it was going to get canceled, and then the, special and the way it was going to move forward. At that point, it's like the first time he notices. What I love about in the special is the realization that Kala never gave him a choice, right? Like, we say he didn't pay attention to what she wanted, but she never gave him a chance to get to know her. And then when she did, he loves her, he just loves her even more. But like going back to that scene, it to me, that's a start of that. Like, that's when he's ready to show her that he wants to hear from her.
Yeah.
All right. So, Purab, we always ask everybody on the show what it means to you personally to live a Sense8 life. Do you have any wisdom you can share with us in the audience? Or how Sense8 has influenced your life that it didn't before? Sorry to interrupt.
I think one of the things that Sense8 really does for me when I see the show and when I read the scripts and when I enact the scenes is it sort of strengthens the connection that one makes with everybody else in the world and everything in the world, information. So many times you feel, and I don't know if this has got anything to do with Sense8, but in the last few years I've noticed that you think of something sometimes across the globe and it happens, and you think of someone and they call you, and you think of, literally, I mean, you imagine things that you want and they happen,
Right.
So I think Sense8 sort of, for me, whenever I think of the characters connecting with each other and, of course, because it's dramatized for a show and being told the way it is being told, I think you see it. It's explained more sort of simply. So I think what is really something I've noticed is the connection that you actually make with everybody and every being and every living thing. Where you can see that information and thoughts and love can be sort of transmitted.
Amen.
Through these, through feelings, and someone else will feel it without you having to say a word, without you communicating things, without you even seeing the person in another part of the world.
Right.
And I think for me, that's what Sense8 sort of underlines, those connections. And that for me is the most important thing.
And was that something that you had already believed and sort of thought about before, and then this amplified it for you?
I think that is something we all know and believe in.
Right.
Whether there's a Sense8 or not, Sense8 underlines it and makes you realize it.
Yes.
It's in everybody. It's in all of us. And with our daily mundane lives and our daily sort of dealings, we tend to forget it or tend to ignore it and tend to push it deep down under where you can't feel it anymore. And then you need a magician to come and sort of scoop it up with her wand.
With great actors and actresses.
Right.
Yeah. We're just instruments of that. We are the wand, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. And I, just to, finalize that and circle it back, I think that is exactly why Lana chose to use Rajan for that final line, because he does represent someone just moving through life and doing what's expected of him, and that and having some of those tendencies, but then just opening up to it, just like the viewers and all of us as humans.
And for me, Purab, what I was trying to say earlier, elaborate a little bit more, is the things that aren't said. And to me, how you portrayed him and what I got out of it was something that wasn't spoken. And I think that has a lot to do with emotional intelligence. And for me, I was able to pick up on your emotional intelligence of portraying Rajan, to see that evolution and how he expanded himself and his identity, even though there was no word until the very last line of the show where he got to experience that. Up until that point, it was just this growth.
Thank you so much, Zac. That's a great compliment for an actor, because
Absolutely.
You have words, that help you as an actor all the time, and then many times you don't have the words, they're not written in, and you wonder, how do you try and portray it? Of course, you have great talented directors who try and push you and make it harder for you and say, okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve here, and then. But as an actor, when you're enacting it, you just believe and you say, okay, let's do it. And then you see it and you're like, oh, okay, it's being told,
Yes.
And
That's awesome. And I agree. I think you did an amazing job of, to me, I saw the transformation. I felt you. And I didn't go into the special 100% sure if I liked Rajan or not.
Me neither.
So, but I came out loving him.
Exactly.
I think that's 100% audience rating on that. It's like, we hate Rajan. Oh, maybe not.
Well, and one of the things I loved, because I always like looking at myself, and when the decision was made for the triad, I looked at myself and thought, like, oh my gosh, Sheila, you didn't, like, there was a part of me that was like kind of, I didn't realize it, but like rooting for Wolfgang and for Rajan to be bad. And I was like, Sheila, you don't believe that. Like, that's not your philosophy of life. You got caught into what's expected. So I was just so excited that it like clicked me back into my reality.
Yes.
Like,
In fact, bringing up Wolfgang and Rajan, which we haven't spoken about. We've spoken about Kala and Rajan a lot, but Wolfgang and Rajan is, I think that's again Lana's genius, to actually look at a love triangle end in that way. She said that to me and Wolfgang. She said to me and Max. She said that you've never seen a love triangle in the tradition of storytelling. You always see a love triangle resolve itself with two people. But here, this love triangle is resolved itself with three people.
I love it.
I loved it too.
That's again the genius of the writers and the genius of the creators. Yes. I mean, that's how Lana thinks. She's just like, why can't it end like this? And it ends like this now, and it's great. It's just fantastic.
Yes, we were on the celebrating side.
We were.
But even that, the fact that so many fans are debating it and it triggered people, that even in itself is genius, because it keeps everybody talking, right?
It's important to look at that too. Like, what do people see in that, and vice versa? That's great. Awesome. So, Purab, before we go, do you have any upcoming movies or shows or work that you would like to tell us about, where we can find more of you in action?
Well, there are some stuff. There's stuff. I mean, most of the stuff I do is in India. So if you can get your hands on Indian material, there's right now I've just finished shooting for a small independent film called Color Black, which should be ready to release sometime at the end of the year, December. Things of mine that, as Sheila and Zac mentioned about Rock On, that's a great film. You can see that part one. There are two parts to it. Part one's really good. And then there's my Brother Nikhi, which is one of my favorite films I've done back in 2005. And then, of course, there's a film that's very close to my heart. It's a film called Jal that released in 2014. I think that's available on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. So check these films out, and you'll get to know me a little more. I only say this because I think this is also an audience that doesn't, though I've been working a lot in India for a long time, I think the listeners of this show probably would be very new to Purab Kohli. So this is some stuff that I like, that I've done, and maybe you would enjoy it too.
Right, and I can attest that you know, for anyone that was thinking that, no, you are established and you've done some amazing work. And in prep for today, I explored some, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. Are there some of those movies that have subtitles?
I think all of them would have subtitles.
Okay.
My Brother Nikhi is a hard film to get, but I think you would get the DVD on Amazon or something in America. Awesome. So that's that's a great film. Do watch it.
Yeah,
really
I definitely want to watch that one. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. And Rock On, of course. Rock On 1 is great too. So.
Right. I saw that trailer too. That looked fun. Yeah, that looked fun.
All right, Purab.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much for coming on to the show.
So much.
Thank you.
And we will.
All right.
We will keep watching your work. You're amazing.
And maybe we can chat again once the next season of Sense8 is out.
Exactly.
All right.
That sounds perfect.
Awesome.
Let's all keep our fingers crossed together.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 A big thank you to Purab Kohli. Thank you so much. We enjoyed our time with you. So much fun. We had some laughs. We got to talk about Rajan, who was an awesome character in the special and before that even, right? Great story. So thank you very much for joining us on the show. Everybody who's listening, thank you very much for spending your time with us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to help us spread the word. And to do that, you can hop over to iTunes and make sure you give us a 5-star rating on all of our episodes, and also share on social media. And if you want to talk to us, we are very active on Twitter at live_sense8. You can send us an email at team@livesense8 with any questions or comments. And you can get exclusive perks, bonus content, and discussions over on patreon.com/livesense8. And when you support us over there, you're supporting the growth of the show so we can do more. And we have a big thank you to Sarah Applegate, the editor of the Live Sense8 podcast. Until next time, stay connected. Peace.